Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It's February 2nd. This will be our chart lesson for today, and this is going to wrap it up for the week. No chart lessons on Fridays, so we got through another week and another month. Anyway, let's just look at the. You can see here we continue to push higher. We traded way up there today, only to sell off considerably. We still closed far above yesterday, but you can notice we closed below that brown line. If you just kind of assume where it extends up there, we closed below that. So um, will we try to push higher tomorrow? It's possible, but at some point this thing's probably going to sell off, at least correct some and take some of the overbought situation away. Um, if we look at this thing, I think we've made more than two measured legs up now, much more. So if you measure this first leg down here, and then the correction, and then we have two legs in this leg, we far exceeded that. So this thing has been really bullish the last few days. Last 3 days have been super bullish. A lot of buying coming in. What does that mean? It's hard to say. I still think that we're not through to the downside, but I could be wrong. We may turn up here, and this may be it now. So we'll see what happens. Right now, I'd be very careful trying to sell. At some point, we are going to get a correction here, even if it's only temporary, because we're very overbought. And the problem is markets can stay overbought longer than you think they can. So don't try picking tops. Wait till you get a sure thing headed down, and then you can try to trade it. And I think there were a couple of shorts today as we topped out up here on the chart. Not a lot of trades today. As big as this movement was, there were a lot of fast and quick moves that you just didn't really get a chance to enter. So that's tough trading, and I don't ever recommend chasing the market if you want to be a successful trader. Sometimes you have to watch them go without you, and it's unfortunate, and it'll demoralize a trader that doesn't have their mental capacity or their trading. Let me say, I want to say this: your trading mind in the right place, that'll demoralize somebody and it'll lead to a lot of losses. So don't let it get to you. If you see a big move and like this big move down here, and you can't get in it, where I can't get my mouse to show up. There it is. It's big move down, and you see that happening and you can't get in it. Don't worry about it. There's nothing you can do about it, and by letting it shake you up, you end up chasing the market and you make mistakes, and that leads to losing. So winning traders don't let a big move that goes without them bother them. It takes a while to figure that out, but I'm telling you now early, so you don't have to go through the pain that a lot of people have to go through to learn that lesson. So never chase the market. If you don't get a setup, it goes without you. Even if you think you saw a setup and you weren't 100% sure about it and you turned out to be right, don't beat yourself up over that, because all you'll do is the next time you'll say, okay, I talked myself out of this last time. I'm not going to do it this time. I think I'm right. And guess what? You're wrong. And you missed the good trade and you took the bad trade, and you end up missing the best trade and you take a loser. So never chase the market. Never let a missed opportunity get to you. There's always going to be another one coming along shortly. So never worry about that. And usually when there's a questionable trade set up, it's only a few minutes later till a perfect easy setup comes along. And so by being patient, you're not stuck in a bad trade and you don't miss the easy trade and so forth. So just discipline is real important. That's probably the most important thing in this business, is being disciplined and not letting things get to you emotionally. If you get emotional in your trading, you're going to lose. You got to keep the emotions completely out of it. So anyway, let's get to the intraday chart, take a look at it, and go through the trades. Okay, here it is. Early on, we had this little spike up, and then we started trading back down. It looked like we might be in a channel, or I'm sorry, in a range, and then suddenly we rocketed up, and we pretty much made a measured move up here. And then we sold off significantly back into the channel, got outside and went all the way back to the highs again, and then sold off and ended up back down here. So really the channel is probably more like this. And you can see that would, I'd probably bring it down to where that last bar closed positively. Which is right in there. And you can see that that kind of fits the midline across here for the day. So it's probably just a bigger channel than what, this was just half the channel early on. That's why you always look for those measured moves, because you can assume that this was not, maybe not a channel line, but early on that instead it was a midline for a bigger channel. So there it is, pretty strong up, and then really strong down, and then right back up again, and then right back down again. It got really wild this afternoon, and there's not a lot of trades today. There's enough here to find what you need, but there's not a lot of great trades. So let's zoom in here, go through these trades, and wrap this day up. 7 o'clock came right down in here. And here, this is one of those ones that's pretty unfortunate, but there's no way to get in. There is a second entry here. Notice you come back first entry, it turns down, it breaks lower, turns back up. So this was all in one bar, and I definitely would not try to go long way up here. So if you had traded this one, you had to do it on the engulfing bar. And so, you know, that's always questionable. You got to really be careful trading engulfing bars. Sometimes they're worth taking, but a lot of times you'll get burned. And so great move up and not a lot of chance to get in it. And then we're just kind of chopping along up here. And finally we make a, there's not enough space in here really. I'd look at that as one test, and then a second test, and then a third test. And now that you got a triple test with a break, and you couldn't make a new high, I like going short right there. You may not catch the top here, but you'll probably get a scalp out of that. You probably want to make sure you got enough room back to the EMA, because it's still kind of pointing up there. But other than that, I like that as a triple test. And it drops off. It turns out to be a pretty good trade. Then it just starts working sideways. Nothing in here I like. And unfortunately, all the way down here, you just don't really get a setup. You don't want to be going long in here. And you finally get a break. You do get a second entry here, but that signal bar is not any good. I wouldn't call this a failure, because this looks like a one high up here, so it's just a first entry. Second entry long comes way down here, so it's too far. You don't want to be taking a failure way down there. Then we bounce. Now we've had a break and a couple of legs down. We come up, and we do try to go higher here 3 times, but that signal bar is no good before we head down again. And but this is a new high, and then you try to go higher once and then twice, and it fails and turns back down. And there's also a new swing low. It's lower than that one, so that's a first entry, second entry. So that's a failed second entry long and a second entry short. I like it for either one. If you're not skilled enough, which most of you listen won't be, to trade a reversal, or in this case it would be a failure, you still got the second entry to trade there. And you could go short one tick below that bar. You could let it break lower and put your sell stop right there at that low, so it would be one tick below where it actually became a second entry, and take it that way. In this case, I'd probably just put it one tick below that. And then we're just kind of going sideways, and we bounce out of there. This is a first entry, second entry, so if it breaks higher, it is a failure right there, and you can see it traps people and takes off. And then we just kind of chop back over to the trend line and go higher again. Again, I just don't see anything there you can take, and you got this nice move all the way up, and you just don't really get an opportunity to enter it. Even once we get a break, it just keeps going. It never really gives you a good chance to enter. Then we trade down. You get a close outside. Of course, I'd draw this trend on the way up. You get a close outside there, a new high, and that's a lower high, basically a double top. If it breaks lower there, maybe you go with it. That's a little risky. It's still a little early. This was a really strong move up, and we're not really selling off yet. Double top maybe. Um, Drops down here. Maybe you buy the low. It's a nice signal bar. This is actually the retest from here because we just broke out of there. Notice we made a retest and a new low, and then we're headed higher. I didn't finish this one. This one should have been green. And so we got this channel heading up. It's a little steeper than that. It's not drawn very well. Let me draw it here so people can see it clearly. And you can see that's what it should look like. You get a close outside. You try to go lower 3 times. There's a second entry long there. This looks a little congested, but it really is a triple test. So you might go long there. I think it's right off the midline. It's testing it 3 times, so it's probably going to go higher. Then it runs up, makes a new high, and then you got a triple test with a nice signal bar. I definitely like going short there, but you could have gone long there. It's a little risky, but I think you can justify that one. And we don't get any rejection down here, and that's scary because it probably means you may break lower, which we do. So don't be trying to buy when it's going sideways like that, and you're not getting any rejection. Rejection looks like this, and this, and this, and you can see prices aren't getting rejected here. They're just hanging around down there when they touch that support line. And this is rejection off the high on that triple test. Runs up, pull back. This is a higher low, but it's moved a long way. Maybe there's a hidden second entry there you might take, but it's not a great setup, but it's one you might take. Actually, you might have entered above that bar because it's bullish enough. And then so you got this trend break, 2 legs up, and where does it turn down? Right at the same place. We're still making higher highs and higher lows, but I think you can take that trade right there. We've turned down up there every time. Fairly safe being that far away from the EMA, but I still marked it green just because it's not perfect. If it was a second entry, maybe. But it's like a 1, 2, 3. It's like a 4th entry, so that's still an uptrend, and so you got to be a little careful. We're coming down here. You get a close outside, 2 little moves down, and you get another bounce off the lows. And by that time, you probably would have moved this down a little more where we catch those last few closes across there. And I like that trade right there. Nice signal bar, and look at it go. And you actually do get 2 legs up here. And I don't think it breaks lower there, but you still see we come back. There's still 2 legs up. It's just a first entry, but this actually breaks higher and turns down. Would I trade that on the engulfing bar? Maybe, but I'd probably wait and just go short. Let's see make sure it breaks below this. Put my sell stop there, and if it breaks, I'm going with it, and it does. And you see, now that we've broken higher here after the failed break lower, we end up going higher again. And you get, I didn't do a very good job of coloring these today. And the color, just if you're new, the color doesn't really mean anything. I usually do the greens for the up, the real tight up channels, and the khaki for the down, pink for ranges. It doesn't really mean anything. It just makes it easier to see the channels and the ranges. That's all it's really for. Otherwise, this doesn't represent anything special or anything. But we're moving up. You come back, you get a first entry, and then, and then a second entry right there. It's just a little congested. It's another one. This has been a really strong market, so maybe you take that. It's a higher low, but it's a little bit congested there. It would have been a nice move, but sometimes those are risky. And we do get move up here. That would have been a measured move earlier because I had the channel drawn smaller. Now I ended up spreading it out and thinking this is the whole thing as a channel, and we turn down. Look how quickly we sell off there. We're way overbought up here. I showed you that on the daily channel. It should be more like that. And you just don't get a chance to enter it. I'm not crazy about entering here. Just this little congestion area. We do get a second entry short here, but again, it's congested and you don't get a very good signal bar. It's a shame because it is a second entry. Drop down, same thing here, just too congested. And you just don't really get a chance. There's nothing safe there to enter that. And now you've had a close outside and a couple legs to a new low, so you got to be real careful again. Finally, you get a first entry, and then it breaks higher and turns back down, so you get a second entry right there. You could call this a failure, but I'd rather it be off the trend line than right here. You might trade that one. That's another one you could argue to be green because this is a pretty strong sell-off here. Notice how we don't make a new low there and then we get the break. That's a clue that we can't get back down to the low, that we may break outside, and of course we do. The first entry here and then another second entry is almost very similar to this last one. And then again another failed second entry long there, so a failure, but I want it to be off the EMA, not this trend line, because we had a break and a couple of legs down. This could be a trap. It doesn't turn out to be one, but it could be. And we can come back here again, but no setup. You might look at this as a range and a failed breakout. In that case, maybe you take that and you see it doesn't go far, and then we're turning and reversing here. And I don't see anything here to the upside that I'd want to take. There's a second entry long here. There's a new high, first entry second, but look how bearish that bar is. I'm not taking that. And then you get another break and just a first entry, and that takes us into 2 o'clock or 2:30. I'm sorry. We usually, and if you're new, we don't usually take any trades after 2:30 because if you're running out of time out here, you don't usually get this much movement after 2:30 either. And if you make a mistake out in here, you don't have time to make it up. So usually that's my cutoff time is 2:30, and so I quit marketing any trades after that. And I usually suggest nobody takes trades. I mean, it takes new trades after that time. If you've got a runner going, by all means, and the trend's still going, stay with it. I'd be out by 3 o'clock because you can see 3 o'clock's when and you can tell there must have been a lot of people in trades today because at 3 o'clock there's this big burst and sell off, and that's everybody exiting most likely, because most of your brokers will kick you out around that time. Most people just like to be out by 3 because usually after 3 o'clock nothing much happens, and you can get stuck in a trade just chopping around sideways in a little point or two range. So there it is again. We get these bursts, and instead of going sideways today, we did sell off. Then we get a burst, and this one just went sideways. We got a burst, and that one just sold off. And then I think the afternoon's just people don't know what's going on. This might have been, we're in very overbought territory, so this is probably profit taking. People started taking their profit, and it got a little sold off too much too quick, and some buying comes back in, and once it gets back up there again, it sells off hard again. So there may be really strong resistance up here, and it's definitely very oversold up there. So again, there it is for the day. You can see it. Kind of an odd day. We still traded up for closed up for the day. Here's where we closed yesterday, this red line, and we closed way up here today. So anyway, I'm not going to beat around the bush today. Not the easiest day, not a lot of trades today, but there it is. That's how I see it. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again Monday. No chart lesson tomorrow on Fridays. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.